Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 264, and I'm continuing the story of the slave girl, Anis al-Jalis, and Nur al-Din Ali ibn Khaqah. Now, you might remember in the story that Nur al-Din's father, who was Fadl al-Din, he was a vizier of the king, Muhammad ibn Salman Samabe, who had instructed him to go find a beautiful slave girl that was well-versed, educated, well-versed in anything and everything, educated, beautiful. And he'd given him 10,000 gold dinars to do so. And after quite a long time, eventually one of the brokers said that he had just the girl for him, and he asked to see her and bought her. And from a Persian gentleman, who was very old, and the broker, as he was leaving, told him, you should let her rest up a little bit. She's just come after a long journey, and it will do you of benefit to do such a thing. So Fadil decided that this was a great idea and took her home and placed her in one of the inner rooms in his palace. Now, as he was taking her into her room, leaving her there, he said to her, "Listen to me and make sure you follow what I'm about to tell you. I have a devil of a son, and he has slept with every woman in the village. Do not let him see your face or hear your voice." Well, she turned to him and said, "I hear and obey." Now, Fadl al-Din supplied her with beautiful food and all that she could wish for, fruits, nuts, drink. And she became, a part of the household in a certain way. His wife, Fadl's wife, and her maids took care of Anis al-Jalis, and all went quite well. After some days of her staying there, a bath was prepared for her. And so she left her room and went to the baths, and a couple of maids attended to her. And when she came from the baths, she looked more radiant and more beautiful than ever. And she was clothed in beautiful garments befitting a young woman of her age, and then was making her way back to her chamber when Fadl al-Din's wife saw her and said, "My dear, how are the baths?" And Anis al-Jalis said, "Oh my, the baths were incredibly wonderful, and the temperatures are so perfect right now that they are but awaiting your presence." And so Fadl al-Din's wife, she heard what Anis al-Jalis had said, and she thought, "That is a splendid idea. I will go." And so she asked for her maids, and all of them made their way to the bath. Now, Anis al-Jalis made her way to her chamber, and into her chamber she went, and at her door were two small maids that were left there to make sure that no one came into her room. Now, it just so happened that Nur al-Din, Ali ibn Khaqah, we'll call him Nur al-Din from now on, even though that was the name of the person in the previous story, Nur al-Din came into his mother's chamber looking for her. And he saw the two maids by the door, and he asked where his mother was. And they said, well, she's gone to the baths. Now, Nur al-Din knew nothing about Anis al-Jalis. He didn't know that she was staying there in their house, knew nothing. And when he saw the maids there, he found it a little odd, but was about to turn away and go. Now, Anis al-Jalis, she had heard from inside her room the voice of Nur al-Din. She wondered to herself, I wonder if this is the young man that Fadil al-Din had warned me about. And so she went to the door and opened it a little bit and looked out. And as she did so, she saw before her the most beautiful young man. For Nur al-Din was very handsome and very well kept, and was the kind of man that, of course, poems would be written about. His dark eyebrows and dark curling locks, and his broad shoulders and masculine frame and thin waist and beautiful eyes, and it would go on like that. Well, at that very same moment, Nur al-Din happened to look in the direction of the door as he was turning to leave, and saw Anis al-Jalis. And what went on between them was love. They both saw each other and immediately felt a longing for each other. Well, Nur al-Din took a couple more steps to the door, and he yelled at the maids that were there guarding the door, and they fled a short ways away from the door. Anis al-Jalis had turned away from the door the minute their eyes had locked. And now Nur al-Din opened the door, and he went to her. And he said to her, "Are you the woman that my father has bought for me?" And she said, "Yes, I am. I certainly am." And at this, Nur al-Din took her in his arms, and she took him in her arms and began to kiss him. And one thing led to another. They took her virginity. And then the maid, seeing what was going on, began screaming. Nur al-Din left because he was afraid of the consequences, and off he ran out of the palace. Now, from the baths, Fadil al-Din's wife could hear what was going on. And she immediately got out of the bath and was dried off and clothed herself and began to make her way quickly back to her quarters. Now we'll leave the story there and see what happens next. Thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day.